All right. And there we are. All right. So we're live. Welcome, everybody, back to Guys Being Dudes. I'm Jonathan Russian. I'm here with Tom Tabor.
What's up, guys?
Absolutely. And this is our third episode of the podcast. So we're super excited to be back at it again. So
A little
after
more, a
last,
little more professional here, right?
yeah, way
Like
more
our little
professional.
setup
Look at
right
us. Look at our
here.
setup, man. We got two
Yep.
screens, we got mics. We're ready to go. So yeah, so last episode to kind of summarize where we left off, we went into junior year. We broke down prospect camps. We talked about how important junior year film is. We really got into all that good stuff. We talked about how it's more of a heightened competition during your junior year and at these prospect camps, and how you're in these camps with no pads, competing, trying to be seen by these coaches. You're making these connections, and it's really a huge moment for you. So we're going to pick up right where we left off. And this time we're talking about senior year, which is just as important. It's just as crucial. So with that being said, you're going into senior year, Tom.
Yes.
What's the most important thing first and foremost? What
So,
what's the what's the most important thing you have to do during that off season?
so that off season, it's go time. So this is when you're going to be going to all of those prospect camps. Going into my senior year, this is when I went to 13 prospect camps through those summer months. I even ramped it up and did two combines as well going into my senior year. The combines were to prep me for the measurables that they would be testing at these prospect camps. So the combines, they would test your 40, your 5-10-5 shuttle, your bench press, your vertical, your broad jump. Then you do a little position work as well. So this is go time. This is your tryout. Senior year spotlights on you. This is your time. So
Absolutely.
competition. This is the height of the competition for your tryout for whatever university you're trying to attend and play football for.
Hmm. So you said you went to 13 of these uh, going into senior year.
Yep. So I ended up going to 13 of these camps. Now I was probably, in retrospect, a little foolish for doing this. I actually had a so one of the coaches that came to visit me, Coach McCarty, who's the D line coach at Fordham, he asked me how many camps I was planning on attending that summer. I was like, "Well, we're signed up for 15 right now," and he looked at me like I was fucking crazy.
My
He's
dude
like
went on a tour.
he's like 15
Went on a
camps.
summer tour.
He's like you're gonna get injured. It's like you're gonna get injured. That's stupid. You're foolish for doing 15 camps. Then after he left, I was kind of like, oh yeah, well, I'll cut it to 13 camps. I'll show you how foolish I am.
I'll show you.
But no, he had a really good point because in retrospect, I did not spread these out very well. A lot of camps were like back to back days, and we already talked about this the last episode.
Mhm.
Legs are not fresh. Definitely get a little more gassed. Your competition has has
Yeah,
fresh legs, and you don't.
refresh my memory. What camp was it where you had went to one? I think the day before, and then you made a long drive, and then you had a camp the next day, and it wasn't really the greatest camp for you.
Jonathan, I did this multiple times. So my practice run with the prospect camps. So going into my junior year, I did. This is when I was at UMaine, which was my first ever prospect camp. I did. Did that. That was a full day. Drove 16 hours down to James Madison in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And this was another full day, 1 day prospect camp. And of course, it was like much hotter in Virginia than it was in Maine. And yeah,
Mm,
I was done for the count. I was just done for it. But then I made
I
the
can
same
imagine.
mistake.
I
Made
can
the same
imagine.
mistake going into senior year. But this was because Boston College. Uh, so Boston College was one of my top schools. That's
Mhm.
actually going into my senior year. That is where I wanted to play. That was the most important prospect camp to me. But unfortunately, they came to me too like really late. After I'd already scheduled like a lot of my camps because they didn't have their dates available. And I remember they only had 2 or 3 dates available for 1 day prospect camps. And so I had to I had to schedule it the day after I was at Old Dominion, and I was originally supposed to be at Monmouth College, which is, not like, I mean, it's kind of far away from Old Dominion, but it was doable. I was going to be staying the night in a hotel. No. So I was at Old Dominion, which was in Norfolk, Virginia. Ended up driving, I believe it's 10 hours away from Boston. So I ended up driving from Old Dominion, sleeping in the car, back to Boston for the most important prospect camp of my senior year. And I had one of my worst prospect camps. There was this defensive end there that just toasted my ass on every single one-on-one rep. And
Damn.
it was humiliating.
So what about that camp made it so bad? Was it just you just didn't have the legs, or was it the level of competition?
I was tired. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I was tired. I slept in the car. My legs were definitely so sore from the day before because I had a decent camp at Old Dominion. I ended up winning the majority of my one-on-one reps. I ended up losing one. But yeah, at BC, I did not win a single rep against this one kid that I kept going against, and
Man, he owned you, huh?
he owned me. I will say, in terms of this kid's talent, yeah, that kid, I don't know his name, but I would assume he probably played in the ACC or the SEC. Like, there's no doubt about it.
Damn.
And
So part of it is just bad luck. Just wrong day, wrong place, wrong time. Your legs weren't really there, and then you got this kid who was ready to seize the opportunity.
exactly. So yeah, I mean, if you're able to spread these camps out more, um, you know, you got to understand every single coach is going to ask you to go to their prospect camp. You
Mhm.
can't physically go to every single prospect camp. You have to do what's best for you. So honestly, going into your senior year, I would make a top 10 list. Schools where you actually want to go, and then schools where you kind of already have that rapport with the coach that's recruiting you. So I'm not going to give you my top 10 list because I don't really remember who it was, but I can tell you going into my senior year, yeah, Boston College was definitely number one. UMass, Old Dominion was up there, Furman,
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire,
Mhm.
VMI.
So with that being said, Tom, um, when you have that top 10 list, like you said, and there's that one school that you really want to go to, but say they only give you 2 dates.
Mhm.
Do you just kind of cancel everything? Like in hindsight, do you wish you would have kind of canceled that other camp that you went to and just focused on the Boston College camp? Or was it important to kind of make sure you got all those camps in? You know what I mean?
So in hindsight, I actually wish, well, because I know the results of the Boston College camp, I wish I never went to the Boston College camp. I wish I stuck to my original schedule of going to Old Dominion and then Monmouth the next day. So Monmouth, I I feel
You
pretty.
really not you would not want to see that kid again, would you?
Well, maybe if
No, thank
we,
you.
maybe much later on when we were both in college. So I was definitely, I got a lot better in college, that's for sure. But yeah, probably Monmouth. Like I think I could have gotten a scholarship if I had gone to that camp. Like I think I definitely
Mm.
had a good shot of it. But here's the thing: like every single coach, they're going to tell you you're their guy. They're going to tell you like, oh, you're in the next wave of offers. We just want to see you at camp. So Boston College, man, they're telling me, yeah, we want you, man. Like you're our guy. They brought me in for 2 visits in the spring. Coach Washington, Al Washington, he was the running backs coach there. He was the guy that ended up recruiting me from there. He ended up visiting me at school twice, and it's like okay, the interest is definitely there. He's telling me I'm his guy. He's saying I just have to show up to this camp, and I'm basically there. I can probably commit next day, and it's over.
So what did Al Washington say after that camp? Like, did the energy switch up,
So I
or was
called
he
him.
still calling you?
I I had to call him the very next day. So I called him to kind of recap the camp because I didn't really get a chance to talk to him after. So it's going to be like basically like, "Hey, where do things stand?" But before I even asked anything, he's like, "Tom, what happened, man?
Oh no. Oh
I
no.
was
What
like,
happened? What did you say to that? Like, what can you say to that?
I was shook. I was shook. I just told him, I think I tried pulling every excuse out of my ass.
My
I was
bad,
like,
coach.
I was like, well, I was in Virginia, the day before, I wasn't prepared for this.
Oh
You
my
give me
god.
another opportunity. No, that was it. That was the end of my ride with BC. And then and then I had a vendetta against BC. I was like, when I make it to college, I'm gonna play BC. I'm gonna kick their ass. Um, partially true. Ended up the playing BC part ended up happening.
Didn't kick their ass.
We got our asses kicked.
You win some, you lose some, buddy.
You win some, you lose some.
That's all you can
Exactly.
say in that scenario.
Or as a 49er fan, you win some, you lose most.
Oh, yeah. You got next year, man. There's always next year.
Absolutely.
All right. So are there any other we talked about make a top 10 list. If you could have done things differently, I know you said you would have spread the camps out, but how would you have gotten a better idea of like what your real options were if you could have done that over again? Because like you said, these coaches are calling you and they're like, "Hey, my man,
Yep.
we just need to see you at this camp or you're next up." How do you kind of discern whether or not they're being
Exactly.
truthful or if they're just tickling your ears?
So in retrospect, I would definitely say choose two schools that are like your dream school, like you're shooting for the stars. Like, hey, I mean, yeah, I probably won't make it here, but I gotta say, at least I tried. So Boston College, I mean, that's definitely one. And then I would say going into my prep year, I was like, Wake Forest, I mean, what the hell? I'll give it a shot. Um, and then I would say, so I really wouldn't recommend doing 13 camps. Like, definitely not. I would say maybe five, maybe seven. So do your two dream schools and then five schools that you know are interested in, but you definitely know like that is a school you would want to go to because honestly, Jonathan, I did some throwaway camps. Like it was
Mm.
these camps were just to get offers. So I went to Sacred Heart, I went to Central Connecticut State, and I went to Wagner College. And these were my throwaway camps. I knew I did not want to go to school at either one of these places.
So
Basically,
what was the point of going to them? Just to get reps in?
the
Or
motive was the level of competition at these particular FCS programs in the past has not been as high as like other FCS programs. So I'm thinking I can go in there to get scholarships to use as momentum, to use as leverage in my recruiting. So like
so
next time I'm
you could go to there and get an offer and then say to somewhere that you really want to go, "Hey, I have an offer from here." Is that what you
yes,
mean?
exactly. Because I could call up Furman, who I had great interest in Furman, and be like, "Hey, you might want to hurry up because Wagner or Sacred Heart or Central Connecticut offered me a full ride, so you gotta step on it."
Gotcha.
But yeah, in
So you would
retrospect,
do away with that then? You wouldn't
I
waste
wouldn't
that
have gone to
time?
those camps. I would only go to camps that I know that I want to go to school there, that I know I would want to play there. If I can't see myself going there, I shouldn't even bother going to those camps.
Right. Makes sense. And then it also kind of sounds like, you don't need that leverage if you really go to these camps and display your ability, right? You
Exactly.
would need that leverage anyway.
Exactly.
Instead of going there and you kind of overextended yourself a little bit. Now you have a bad camp and coach is like, "Yo, dude, what happened? I've been vouching for you this whole time."
Yeah, no, Coach Washington, if you're somehow watching this, I am sorry that I let you down. I probably made him look like a fool when he was who was the O line coach? I think it was Coach Fry. Coach Fry. And I bet you we had that unpleasant conversation. Coach Fry was probably like, Al, what the hell are you thinking?
Man. All right, so you bring that list from, maybe 10 to 12 schools down to 5.
Mhm.
So, do you want to how spread out do these camps need to be? Like
I mean,
do you want to have a consistent schedule to where you're keeping yourself warm and everything, or is it like you need to give yourself time to be completely fresh,
so
go
I
into
would
the next
say,
camp with a clean slate?
yeah, I would say you can do a couple a week. Um, I would say bare minimum, like for your body to recover, I would say. Well, also you got to take into consideration you're young, so you can recover much faster. I'd say 2 days is fine. 3 days is fine. But I mean, yeah, if you're spread out like a week between camps, I mean, that's perfect. And then, I mean,
Mhm.
if you're only going to 5 to 7, you can do like no more than 2 camps a week for the whole summer. You're fine.
Gotcha. So now that we kind of got through the bad story of a camp that didn't kind of go the way you wanted it to, was there any were there any camps where you kind of shot for the stars? You're like, I don't know, if this program's for me, but I'm gonna go and put my best foot forward. And then you had a positive result?
Yeah, absolutely. So this wasn't wouldn't really say so much about going into my senior year, but when I decided to reopen up my recruiting, decided to make the decision to go to prep school. Uh, I only shot for the stars. I went to 2 camps that year because everyone that was already recruiting me going into prep school, they had already seen me at camp. They already knew what I was like. So it's like, hey, I'm just going to go to 2 camps. I'm going to shoot for the stars here. So this particular summer, I went to Wake Forest first, and then I went to UConn after. Um, so Wake Forest, I already talked about it a bit in the last episode. I think this was the best camp I ever had. I won
Mhm.
every single one-on-one rep. I moved around very well. Like my 40 was good. My 5.10.5 was good. Even through the agility circuit, the head coach actually came up to me and he said he was impressed with the way I was moving. He was impressed with my lateral speed. He even said he was a little impressed with how I was able to bend, but we know that's not true, man. You can ask everyone I played with in college. I was the stiffest person anyone's ever played with. But no, it went really well for me. And then I kind of took that momentum from the Wake Forest camp to the UConn camp, which was a week later. So yeah, I spread that out, by the way. Went to the UConn camp 1 week later. I
There you
was
go.
well rested. I was well prepared. And then I had another fantastic camp at UConn. Now, I never thought I was going to play for UConn. I was just shooting for the stars there. I did have a brief introduction to UConn because I met Coach Foley, who was the O-line coach there. I met him at a combine that my head coach at Worcester Academy hosted. So I met Foley there. Coach Foley said, "Hey, come to my camp." So then went to the camp, and he ended up connecting with my head coach afterwards. Said they were very impressed with how I did at camp. And fast forwarding, obviously, that's where I ended up. I ended up at UConn.
Absolutely. So yeah, man, that's a great story. I'm glad you were able to bounce back and and end up having a good camp, for two other big programs, instead of kind of getting discouraged by that experience at Boston College, which I'm not gonna lie, that would have been pretty discouraging, man. If I had that type of experience and had a kid just hand it to me, I would be like, I'd be a little apprehensive about that next camp at that next big program, So kudos to you, because sometimes that's what you have to do, right? We talked about this last episode. Um, if you don't think you're good enough to play there, that's something for a different day, right? Or if you didn't put
Exactly.
the output out that you expected, that's something for a different day, right? And sometimes you just have bad days and you got to keep the faith
You
in
do.
your ability and go on to the next, right?
I mean,
So,
Jonathan, the whole recruiting process, as you know from what I've told you before, it was a fucking roller coaster for me, man.
yeah.
There were several ups and downs.
Yeah.
And like we talked about, I believe it was in our first episode. You got to treat each day like it's a new day. You're gonna have bad days. I mean, I've had my share of let's say in college, I can't tell you how many bad practices I've had, but then I'll just bounce back the next day. I mean, you got to stay calm, cool, and collected. It's easier, it's easier said than done, but that is exactly what you have to do. You have to have short-term memory. If you have a bad day, you got to let it go, move on to the next. And because of all the hard experiences I had, kind of that first summer of going through the prospect camps, I felt like I was more prepared going into prep school, doing those prospect camps, going into my prep year. I was more prepared for those than anything. I
Right.
mean, you could just, I think just the maturity alone, it definitely made a difference going into those camps.
For sure. And I think sometimes what that is just sometimes the things that we want don't happen exactly when we want them to happen, right? And sometimes you just got to keep on holding on and knowing that you can't see what's coming around the corner, in the future. That thing that you're going after, even though you don't get it right now, it could be upcoming, and that's something that
Absolutely.
whether you're an athlete, whether you're an entrepreneur, anything, um, you're gonna have those moments where your faith is tested and you feel like giving up, or you're like, man, I feel just as far away as I ever have right now,
Yeah.
and you just got to get through that.
It's
Um,
going to hurt, man. It's going to hurt. Like there's going to be a lot of pain, a lot of anguish. You're just
no pain, no gain.
no pain, no gain. You already know it, buddy.
Hey, give no fucks.
It does all go back to what T Stock
It all
said.
goes back to give no fucks, man.
Give no fucks.
All right, so let's get into the season. All
Mhm.
right, we kind of touched on prospect camps. Everything's ramped up. This is it. This is senior year.
That's senior
So
film.
senior film. Let's talk about senior tape.
So your senior tape, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. It
Mhm.
has to be your best tape. Show me the growth over the last few years. Show me just the growth from junior year to now. This is your most important film. And at this point, coaches, they're not just going to want to see highlights. They're going to want to see a full game too. So
So effort is going to
effort,
be at an all-time high. The
effort.
importance.
Absolutely. They want to see, hey, does this kid get tired? Does he take plays off?
Mhm.
And you got to tell yourself, fuck no, I'm not taking any plays off. And now in high school, most people play both sides of the ball. So you're gonna be gassed. Like physically, you're gonna feel freaking pain. You're gonna feel exertion. Like Jonathan,
Exertion.
I cramped up after every single game I ever played in high school because I was gassed. I,
Mhm.
sw- I I sweat everything out. Just let everything out, man. It's
So it sounds like this is the part where you can't just rely on your talent anymore,
mhm.
right? The senior year, because the coaches, they're looking at the whole game. They're watching. Who was it? Is it Nick Saban? You told me he watches
Yes,
everyone's film ever, right? Like every
ever.
game ever.
Every single game that they ever played.
Yeah.
At
So
least that's what
imagine
he
that.
said. That's what he said, and I think it was he was on 60 Minutes, and someone he recruited mentioned like, yeah, Coach Saban will watch every single game you've ever played in, and he wants
So
to
so like
see if there's a lack of effort, if you're taking plays off. If
mhm,
you what we call in college, if you loaf, which basically means loaf is another word for lazy. Like, oh, was this a lazy on this play?
mhm.
Like, did he not finish a block? Like, did he just you know, just do what he had to do and then that was it?
Right. Because it's not just the physical aspect of the game, right?
Mhm.
It's gonna be mental. It's gonna be, what are your habits?
Yep.
Over the stretch of a game, does this kid have a tendency to, yeah, he's talented, but in the second half of the game, his effort starts declining, right?
Yep.
Well,
And
that's
I'll
not
tell
a
you
fit for my program.
exactly. And I'll tell you one thing coaches absolutely love. So, like, from an offensive lineman's perspective, so when there's a sudden change, when your quarterback throws an interception or you fumble, if they see that you're hustling your ass to the other end of the field to tackle whoever made that interception, they love that. And then in high school, a lot of people, they'll have to, like a lot of O linemen will, for some reason, have to be on punt coverage or punt return. They want to see your hustle on punt coverage. Like they want to see, like,
They wanna see you getting tackles.
yeah, well, if you can, absolutely. Um,
Beating the corners down the field and getting a tackle. They
yep,
wanna see
yep. And
it.
then oftentimes, as an offensive lineman in pass protection, it's like, okay, you do your job. You protected the quarterback. Balls out. Okay, balls out. Play's not over yet. Are you sprinting to the receiver? Are you sprinting there? Maybe you can make a block downfield. Maybe you can spring what was initially a 10-yard gain into a freaking touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're going to be looking for.
There's layers to the game, man. That's for sure. Because I mean, they're
Absolutely.
basically they want you to be hardwired. They want those football instincts, the things that you've learned since little league. They want to see all those instincts on tape, and they want to see that passion coming through the tape. So yeah, that's crazy. So anything else about senior tape you want to call out there other than it's the most important, and it's not just about talent, it's not just about highlight plays.
Effort.
It's effort, energy, fundamentals.
And then technique. Of course, they're going to want to see, has your technique improved? It shows like, are you coachable? Then obviously you do several camps over the course of 4 years. So it's like, okay, like, are they clearly learning new technique? Are they able to?
It's kind of like it's now or never, right?
Yep. Are they able to take what they've been learning? Like
and
they might even watch and be like, okay, I remember he had this problem at my prospect camp. I want to see if he worked on this over the summer, and if there's a clear difference on tape.
Because you know what? The eye in the sky don't lie.
It does not lie. Unfortunately, it doesn't lie. I mean, sometimes, I would talk it up. I would talk myself up after a game. Like, let's say one of my friends that didn't see the game, they were asking about it, I'd be like, yeah, man, I was pancaking people left and right. What if you just turn the film on and then there's me just getting destroyed?
All right. So let's get back into kind of the disappointment that happened in senior year. So let's get into signing day and the story there. So how does that process work? How big was your list going into signing day? And we'll start there, and we'll, what were your options? What did you think? Where did you think you were going to end up? And how did that process boil down?
So yeah, but I mean, before signing day, my list kept getting smaller and smaller. So I'd say, so it's frustrating. So throughout the course of senior season, I'm putting out what I thought was my best film. I'm thinking, without a doubt, I'm going to get offered soon. Over the summer, coaches were telling me, like, you're in the next wave of offers, like, you're it, man. Yeah, so slowly, I mean, over the course of the season, Old Dominion told me, hey, we had too many guys commit. We have nothing available. Furman was out. Wofford was out. Holy Cross was out. And UMass ended up being out. So it got to the point where I think I remember 2 months before signing day, it was pretty much just UMaine, New Hampshire, and VMI. And I think I ended up getting an acceptance letter from the University of Maine. I ended up calling the coach. It was Coach Webster. I called him up. I'm like, Coach Webster, great news. I got in the UMaine. He's like, hey, that's awesome, man. Congratulations. We're out of scholarships. Maybe you want to walk on here? And so that's just disappointment right there. January hits. I still have nothing. I don't have confirmation yet from New Hampshire or VMI. I don't have confirmation if they're going to offer me or not. So still kind of holding on to hope here. And, New Hampshire, we had, it was Coach Frizzoco there. We had been in, constant contact with each other. We pretty much talked every single week. He had already visited me a couple times. I went to a game visit out there my senior year. So they were very interested. And then come January, my coaches notified me that, hey, Coach Frizzoco from UNH is going to be visiting tomorrow. He's going to visit you in school. So I'm thinking, like, okay, they're making the effort to come out here and see me. So this has to be good news. They're going to give me a scholarship. So the University of New Hampshire, they're FCS. So it's either going to be the FCS, you're able to break up scholarships, So it's either going to be a full or a partial. And then, for reference, FBS, they're all full scholarships in the FBS. So I remember talking with my dad, like, hey, this is a big day. This is it. I think we're going to hear great news tomorrow. So I remember on my way to school, we were talking about this the other day. We were talking about that American Authors song, Best Day of My Life. It came on the radio. That. Can you sing it for me? You know that one?
I don't remember. I really don't.
Be
Or I
the
would.
best day of my life. So I'm
All right,
like,
yeah.
I'm driving. I'm like, it's gonna be the best day of my life. And I'm thinking, like, okay, this is it.
Oh,
This is
man.
my time. This is awesome. To this day, I cannot listen to that song, by the way, because of this particular day. So I get there. It's first period. I'm in class. I get the phone call, like, Tom, you're wanted at the guidance counselor. There's a coach here to see you. I step in the office. Coach Rizzoco does, the basic intro, like, Tom, great to see you. He daps me up. And he's like, hey, man, we absolutely love you. We want you to, to be a Wildcat. The only issue is we don't have any scholarships left. As soon as he said that, my heart fucking sunk. And I was
terrible.
The rest of this conversation, I didn't even listen to the rest. So whatever he had to say after that, because I was holding back tears, and
then you had to go back to class.
I had to go back.
That makes
to
it
class.
even worse.
And what sucked was people knew how late it was getting in the game. So like my classmates knew, like, oh shit, the coach is here today. They're probably giving him a scholarship. So as soon as I get back to class, I have people asking me, they're like, yo, Tabes, what's up, man? What happened? Did you get it? Did you get it? And I remember this is what I said, like holding back tears. I was like, they're like, because they were wondering, they didn't know who was there. So they're like, who's here? Who's here? So I was like, it was UNH. And they, I was like, they informed me that I will not be on scholarship.
Damn.
So that's not even the worst. So that's obviously tough, that was a horrible
That's
day.
incredibly tough, though.
Yeah.
They could have just called.
A simple phone call would have been fine. Exactly.
Speaking like what was their strategy? Did they think that if they still showed up in person that it would like make you feel better or something? Like why would they show up in person and kind of give you that impression like, hey, this is gonna be good?
It was because they wanted me to walk on. They wanted me as because they were giving me one of their preferred walk-on slots. So it's like they wanted me on the team. They told me that they thought I was a guy that could potentially earn a scholarship someday. They just ran out of scholarships at that time. But yeah, speaking of a simple phone call. Right. So we're getting closer to signing day. It's still January. We're getting to late January. Keep in mind, signing day back then was always the first Wednesday in February. So we're almost at the final hour. VMI calls me up. They're like, Tom, we want you to come on an official visit. It's like, hey, this is the first official visit I've been invited to. Jonathan, you only get invited to official visits if they're going to put you on scholarship. Typically. So I'm like, Dad, fuck yeah. VMI wants me. They're going to give me a scholarship. I know it. And obviously my dad is super stoked because this is his alma mater. This is his dream. He's like, oh my God, Tom's going to play football at
So you're
VMI.
probably thinking at this point, it didn't matter about the other ones because it's better this way anyways. I get to go to where my dad went. It's going to be all good.
And the crazy thing is, so VMI, obviously it's a very, very difficult school. It's a military school. So my first year, if I was to go there, would be absolute hell. And I remember for the whole week leading up to the official visit, I was asking my dad, I was like, hey, be real with me. What do I have to do? What's it actually going to be like? How much shit are they going to give me every single day?
So you're already in your head. You're already thinking like, I'm going here.
I'm thinking,
now you're preparing. You're preparing for like just what it's going to be like going there.
Yep. I'm ready. It's like, okay, man, I'm going to be living that military lifestyle. And then I'm thinking
Sergeant
also
Tabor.
and I'm thinking, shit, if I'm going to VMI,
you'd be a great drill sergeant. I just
I don't
thought of
know.
that.
I can't think of like quick insults on the fly. You
Yeah,
know.
you're a little bit too nice for that. You'd have to get a mean streak in you. But I'm sure if
Ex-
you would have went there, they would have helped
oh
you
yeah.
find that.
Oh yeah. Dude, absolutely. But no, seriously, I had it in my head like, okay, yeah, I'm going to VMI, and why would I not sign my commission after going there? So in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to VMI for 4 years, and then I'm gonna be an officer in the U.S. Army after I'm done at VMI.
Mm.
So we make the 11-hour drive from Northbridge, Massachusetts to Lexington, Virginia. And keep in mind, an official visit is an entire weekend. So it's Friday to Sunday. So I took school off that Friday to drive down. I get there. I see Coach Campbell, Matt Campbell, the guy that was recruiting me there. He was the O-line coach. And, he's shooting the shit. And he's like, Tom, great to see you. We love having you down here. I also went to VMI for a game visit, by the way. Do you remember me telling you about that?
No, I don't remember that one.
So I went
So
to a
you had
game
already been here for a game visit junior year?
senior year. So I ended up doing a camp going into senior year. I did the prospect camp at VMI. I
You
also
have a good
visit.
camp?
Yeah, it was definitely one of my better ones. I
I was
also
about to
visited
say.
in the spring. I saw a spring practice there. Met the coaching staff there for the first time. Built rapport with this coach. Ended up getting a game invitation, so I went down to a game. Now, funny story. So obviously they're in Lexington, Virginia. I'm in freaking Massachusetts. You play for your high school games. You're playing Friday night, buddy. So playing a 7 o'clock game Friday night in Webster, Massachusetts. Game probably gets done closer to 10. Get home, shower. I'm basically leaving at midnight to drive down to VMI. So we get there the next day. I had to sleep in the car if I could even fall asleep. I just played a game the night before. I'm freaking exhausted. I fell asleep in the stands watching the game. That's how
Oh.
tired I was. So that's how committed
It
we were.
sounds
I
like
mean,
you were tired your whole junior, senior year of high school.
it was
Just wiped
exhausting.
out.
Lots of visits, lots of trips. But fast forwarding to this official visit, we get there, we're shooting the shit with Coach Campbell. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, so we don't have any scholarships, but we would love for you to be a preferred walk on this team. And my dad was sitting next to me, so my dad heard what Coach Campbell said, and I just looked at my dad, just the look in my dad's eyes, and my dad was shook. It's like, dude, we just drove 11 hours. You could have just told us over the phone. And then I'm stuck there this whole weekend knowing I'm not going to VMI because they didn't put me on scholarship.
So
And
you weren't open to that at this point at
I
all.
was
You were
I
like,
was not
if I don't get a scholarship, I'm not going.
I was not open to walking on at VMI. Because at this point in time, I also keep in mind I had walk-on offers from UMass, so UMass was at least FBS, so I would have
Mm-hmm.
taken that over anything else if I was to walk on anywhere at the time. So I was stuck there for a whole weekend, stayed in the barracks, and that was quite the experience. So the cot that I was sleeping in was right in front of the sink. So my dad told me when he was at VMI, those first few years, if you have to take a leak in the middle of the night, you go in the sink. Because if you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, you have to put on your full uniform to even step outside. So I'm thinking okay, Dad, that was the 80s. This is now. They probably don't do that. In the middle of the night, every time someone walked in front of the bed, I woke up. So I woke up and I stayed there 2 nights. I would wake up 3 or 4 times a night, and one of the roommates would be pissing in the sink, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, they still do it!"
So at that point, did you even want that experience?
I mean, not without a scholarship, absolutely not. If you gave me a scholarship, I'd be like, it's worth it. It's worth it.
I'll make it work.
So leading up to my signing day, that leaves nobody. No offers. nothing.
So this is
And
when you decided to go to prep school?
this is when I decided to commit to Worcester Academy. And so I first met Tony Johnson, who was my head coach at Worcester Academy, during my like going into my state championship senior year. We talked over the phone. It's kind of funny because obviously, I knew about the prep route. I kind of always had it in the back of my head, like, yeah, this is something I would never, ever, ever do in a million years. Like, I'm not going to risk doing an extra year, at a prep school. Risk getting injured, and then that would you know risk everything moving forward. Um, so it's kind of like he was telling me, like, yeah, you'd be great with Worcester Academy, man. I can definitely see you being someone that has the talent to play, in the Conference USA or the American Athletic Conference, which ultimately ended up being right because UConn was American Athletic Conference. But yeah, I'll just kind of brush it off, like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. I'd hang up and be like, fuck no, I'm not going to Worcester Academy. What? Um, but then I ended up calling Tony Johnson after the UNH thing, kind of knowing like I only have one school left. I'm probably going to be shit out of luck. But then I ended up calling him after VMI, of course, basically saying like, Tony, here I am, take me.
Take me.
And Tony Johnson was like, I'm going to get you to where you want to go, buddy. And he ended up giving me a scholarship at Worcester Academy. So I decided to commit there. And I remember he warned me about signing day. He was like, look, man, this is going to be a very difficult day for you. Please do not, watch TV. Do not, Google who's signing where because it's going to be difficult for you. And Jonathan, I shit you not, man, signing day my senior year was one of the worst freaking days I've ever had.
Yeah,
And
I
I
can
remember,
imagine.
and I
'Cause
did
what
not listen to Coach Johnson. I ended up
you
Googling,
watched, you couldn't help yourself.
yep. And I was like, who from Massachusetts? And I was like, are you kidding me? I played against him. What the? and I talked to you about this the other day. I I ramped everything up. I was pissed. My focus. I already had narrow focus. It became laser focus, and I played that song every single day that we talked about. DJ Drama, my moment, because I every time I put that song on, I just felt it just crush me. It was like tired of living any day, like everything's all right, just waiting on that moment. Played that song like it was on
Every day,
repeat every
religiously.
single
Mm.
religiously. And
So
then
to kind of bring this into perspective, it's almost like you had another spark,
yeah,
right? Because our first episode was called The Spark. And you had talked about how Stalin Kalane going to his recruiting presentation lit a spark in you to say, I want to be a Division I college athlete,
mhm,
right? And then full circle, you go through this whole process, these camps, film, becoming a starter your sophomore year, meeting all these coaches, competing against these higher level guys. Now you're back to that same place again, right? It's kind of
yep.
crazy to kind of think about that, how it came full circle. Um, so then moving forward from there, how'd you kind of deal with that? And how do you describe that? Was it disappointment or was it,
It
did
was
you feel like you were more engaged on what you were trying to do? Because you had been working towards this 6 days a week.
yeah,
So like, were
absolutely.
you ready to give up? Were you burnt out? Were you like, how did you feel after that?
I mean, obviously, I was crushed. I was devastated. But you talk about another spark. This wasn't a spark, man. This was a fire. This lit a fire in me, and I became more engaged, more committed to my training, and basically the whole year going into prep school, I was in attack mode. I was like, this. It was the most aggressive I had ever been. I was pissed off. I went into every single game pissed off, and I
Mhm.
wanted to make my opponent pay because I was pissed off. And then how focused was I? I mean, unfortunately, gosh, I mean it comes at a price, man. Um,
Mhm.
I shut myself off from like my final days of high school, really. I wasn't, I feel like I wasn't that, I always had like a pretty good sense of humor. I felt like, I could kind of always make people laugh. I was definitely a lot more serious towards the end. I didn't really have too much fun, to be honest.
All
This
work
thing,
and play.
all work, no play. That's what it ended up turning into. And like, I tried to mask it. I think my closest friends really knew deep down, how much it was eating at me,
Mhm.
because it felt like I had a burden on my shoulders that I was carrying every single day. Um,
That's
and
tough.
there's like and I think all high schools will have like a senior week where like you're with your classmates for like a whole week, you're having fun and all that. I ended up missing a few of the moments in my senior week because I was at a combine at Worcester Academy. And then I had a practice, like a formal practice at Worcester Academy for the combine beforehand. So I was swamped with all of this, and so I didn't get to really like enjoy those final days. And then what killed me the most was having to explain my situation to people. Because everyone's sharing like you're a senior, so you're like, "Oh, where are you going to college?" And everyone's like all excited. They're like, "Oh, I just want to enjoy these final days of senior year. I get to relax. I'm at the school I want to go to." And yeah, it just did not work out for me.
Are we
Jonathan, can you hear me?
are we back?
Yeah, what happened, man?
It connection went down.
Oh, well, we're good. We're still recording.
Yeah, we're still recording.
Had some technical difficulties there, but we
It's all
are
right.
we
It's
are
all
all
right.
good.
It happens.
So
We're
yeah, I
both
was just
had
talking about
it.
just the disappointment. Everyone's all happy talking about the schools they're going to, and it was always awkward explaining the situation.
Mhm.
People be like, "Oh, you're not going into college. You didn't get into college." It's like,
Well,
no,
why
I
not? People want to ask dumb questions,
it's like
inconsiderate questions.
yeah, I got into a few colleges. I'm just doing an extra year. I'm reopening my recruiting by going to a prep school, and
Yeah.
people just didn't understand. And dude,
Mhm.
it was so frustrating every single time because a lot of people asked, just explaining the process, and ugh. And then actually one moment that I remember in particular was graduation day. Um, our principal was kind of like calling out like random people. So he was like, "Stand up if you're going to be playing a sport in college." And so I stood up, of course, and he's kind of calling out everyone, saying where they're going. And then he was like, then he's like, "Tom is going to be going to Worcester Academy. He received this scholarship from them." Um, he was kind of like talking about which level everyone was going to be playing. And then he's like, "Tom is going to hopefully be playing at the Division 1 level when he makes it to college." And then I was just shaking my head like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm going to, yeah."
Damn, man. Those are tough situations to go through when it's just you right? Like sometimes there's situations where it's just you and trusting yourself, trusting your
Absolutely.
vision. And that's exactly what that was. Unfortunately, sometimes you're called to do things that not everyone is going to understand.
Hmm.
And kudos to you for sticking with it, man. Because some people would abandon it, they would give up, and they would be like, well, you know what, maybe I just won't. Maybe this is my end right here, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. I
So,
mean, that's why they say, oh, it's survival of the fittest. Only the strongest will survive. Um, I wasn't going to go down without a fight, man. I was going to just keep going at this thing.
absolutely. So now let's fast forward into prep school. So you said, wait, so you said that um you were more aggressive than you had ever been after signing day. And it kind of wore on you mentally and changed your demeanor a little bit. Do you think in hindsight that you needed that before? Like do you think maybe you needed that mindset at those prospect camps, that aggressiveness, that do or die mentality, that fire, you needed
The
it then?
the best I ever played in my life or the best I ever performed was always when I was pissed off. It was always when I had a chip on my shoulder. So at Worcester Academy, that whole year, I was pissed off. And what's funny is a lot of my teammates, everyone was on the same boat as me. There were a lot of pissed off dudes too. It's like we were a super aggressive team. Like we would
Mhm.
sometimes we would I don't want to say we had cheap shots, but you really got to blow that whistle quickly because we're
Yeah.
gonna we're gonna make people pay. Like we might have given
Take no
some
prisoners.
we might have given some extra shoves, uh, maybe slightly after the whistle was blown, but yeah, we were dude, and we were just angry. We were all angry dudes. We were motivated. It was the
Mhm.
most motivated I'd ever been in my life. Well, up to that point.
Mhm.
Because obviously fast forwarding a few years later into college, when I had the transfer, for that situation, that season, my first season when I transferred, played that whole season just pissed off, and it was the best season I had in my career. My junior year in college was better than my senior year.
Wow. So yeah, let's talk about prep school now. So you're in prep school, right? Ha- and you had Tony Johnson as a coach.
Tony Johnson, head
Tony
football
Johnson.
coach, Worcester
So he
Academy.
he told you, he was the one that believed in you,
Yeah.
right? And he said, I think you can play in this conference. I see the ability, and I can get you to where you're trying to go. So how did he follow through on that promise, and how did you end up going to UConn?
So he made that connection with Coach Foley. He connected me to him during first interaction was during that combine that I mentioned earlier. So we had that combine at Worcester Academy. He invited a few college coaches to come to that, and then I went to that prospect camp at UConn. Coach Foley ended up reaching out to Coach Johnson, saying that he was impressed. He liked what he saw. Coach Johnson made sure to stay in constant communication with Coach Foley throughout the course of that season because unfortunately I hadn't heard from Coach Foley. He kind of ghosted me for a bit there, but Tony was persistent. It's funny because Tony would always say the same thing. He'd be like, I think Coach Foley's name, I think it was Mike. I think his name was Mike Foley. So he would be like, it's like, Mike, I'm telling you, this kid's a prick. You need this guy on your team. It's like,
This
it's like,
kid's a prick.
it's like, Mike, he is a fucking stud. He doesn't have any body fat. He is 300 pounds of muscle. He's a stud. He's a
He's
prick.
a tank.
You need him on your team.
That's
and
awesome.
so he
He
was
really
persistent.
vouched for you.
Yeah, he was persistent. And then all of a sudden, Coach Foley. So unfortunately, my prep year, it ended up being the same damn thing. Slowly over the course of the season, I'm getting no's left and right. People, oh, we're out of scholarships. Oh, we're looking for someone who's taller. Oh, we're looking for someone who I don't know who we can develop more. Or I've heard it all, man. So it's getting to that point again. It's getting very late. I'm already thinking like, dude, I'm not going to get a scholarship again. It's like Groundhog Day. It's happening all over again. And so Coach Johnson told me, hey, Coach Foley's coming to visit you tomorrow. And I was kind of like, oh, that's weird. I'm surprised UConn would visit me this late. And then I already knew in the back of my mind, like, okay, he's going to give me a walk-on offer. Like, there's no doubt about that. I'm obviously not going to get a scholarship there.
Mm-hmm.
So I meet Coach Foley, and as soon as I see him, he's saying nothing but nice things. You know, he's telling me how bad that he wants me. And he says he thinks I'm someone that can play very well at that level. And obviously he told me, like, yeah, we're out of scholarships, but we have a preferred walk-on slot for you. And then he went on to tell me a story about Brendan Veshery, Vesh, who was currently at that point in time, he was a walk-on there. Vesh, and he told me Vesh was about to be put on scholarship, and he told me I reminded him of Vesh, and he thought that I was going to be like Vesh. He was like, honestly, I think, you know, you do this for a year. If you commit to us, you stay with us for a year. You know, I think you're like Veshery. I think you're going to be someone that we put on scholarship. I think there's no doubt about it. And I kind of like that connection he made. I like that he made that personal connection to, you know, a guy he coached already on the team, you know, Vesh. And, you know, and obviously made the effort to come see me. So I'm like, I'm kind of thinking like, you know, why not? I mean, he seems to be pretty confident in me. So then I made the decision, like, yeah, I think I'm going to go to UConn. Then unfortunately, Coach Foley ended up getting fired. So I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, plot twist. I'm like, oh shit. So Coach Foley's gone. So I'm shit out of luck. So they're not even going to take me now. But then all of a sudden, Mike Cummings ends up visiting me at Worcester Academy. And Mike Cummings ended up being my offensive line coach at UConn. And Cummings came to Worcester Academy. He's like, hey, I want you to come on an official visit. So same structure, you know, you go there for a whole weekend. And this is pretty cool. So we went to Rentschler Field, which was our stadium. It was 40 minutes off of campus. So we're touring there. And then we have our first meeting with Bob Diaco, our head coach. One of the craziest individuals you could ever meet in your life. But no, he's trying to get us fired up. I mean, he always kind of had this weird way of firing people up. So he was very intense, and this was just him, dude. He was always intense. Like, even if he's having a normal conversation with you, or if he's trying to get your attention. Like, I remember, like, every time, like, trying to get breakfast, like, during camp, like, I'm kind of tired still, just filling up my plate, and then all of a sudden I hear, "Hi, Tommy." I'm like, what the fuck? And it's just Diaco, like,
yo.
But he was just always intense. That's the kind of guy he was.
And he called you Tommy?
Yep, he called me Tommy. But anyways, we meet him for the first time, and
Psychopath.
No. He's
a cool guy.
He's the man. But he's having this intense meeting with all of us recruits and our families, and he's like, "Look, if you have a scholarship at Monmouth College, if you need to take it, go ahead." And then all of a sudden, these piercing blue eyes are just locked on. It feels like he was looking at every single person at once. And he's like, "But if you want to go to Columbia, Missouri and play against the SEC, you come here."
He sounded just like that.
Oh yeah. And I was like, yeah, I want to play against the SEC. Let's do it. So then I remember I met with him on Sunday. It was just me, him, and then my mom and dad. And I ended up making the decision to commit there. And he opened up the door. All the other coaches were there. And I just remember he made the announcement, like, "We have a Husky." So then every coach gave me a hug. And then I told my high school coaches, and then obviously Tony Johnson, I told them immediately. And then all of a sudden, a couple hours later, I'm all over ESPN Boston and a few other, like, there's a bunch of articles coming out, which is pretty cool. And then UConn came out with a few articles. So it was like, because I think one of my friends like Googled me, and then it was just a full page of articles like, "Oh, Tom Tabor commits to UConn," and it was basically my whole background and everything. So
That's
that
pretty
was
sick.
pretty cool.
That's pretty sick.
Ended up having, of course, the same signing day experience. I was sick to my stomach on signing day. Coach Cummings made the effort to visit me before signing day, saying like, "Hey, I know signing day is going to be a tough day for you, but just focus on finishing your school here, and we're going to get you here. We're going to get you here in the summer for summer workouts, and then training camp in the fall, and we're gonna hit the ground running." So that's how I ended up at UConn.
Man, what a journey that you went on.
Oh yeah,
that's a crazy journey.
And then ended up earning a scholarship after 1 year, just as Coach Foley predicted.
Yep. And we'll go more into that next episode.
Absolutely.
Episode 4. But because we still got more. I mean, this story is not over there.
More to come.
More to come. But
and then we'll start getting guests on here, man. I can't wait.
Oh yeah, we've got some guests lined up already. So we're just getting started here. And we've got plenty of knowledge and plenty of stories that we're going to end up sharing. So more to come. I'm really excited about it. And thanks, Tom, for sharing that, man. That's a powerful story, man.
Man, I enjoy doing this with you, Jonathan. This is awesome, man.
This is awesome.
Because hey,
what's better than this?
Guys being dudes.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, Tommy.
Alrighty, that about wraps up episode 3. We're done being weird. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next time.